raw conversation.
Navigating the natural and theology, influencing people to find purpose and live with quality. We descended to Christ, just acknowledge me. The sacred scriptures tell us, throw down your nets, come and follow me. A leadership that's anointed and appointed. When leading God's people, sometimes you become disappointed. You do what you can, you do what you know. You give it to God and let it go, go, go.
Welcome to The Real with Ross. Today we will sit down with Pastor Diamond Gantt. She is a well-accomplished preacher and a scholar in our generation. We are so happy to have her with us today. Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've had some of the greatest.
Well, you know, you're on the greats list.
No, I'm just glad to be here.
All right. So kick off telling us about your story. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, crazy story. It would take a long time, so I'm gonna try to keep it concise. But my name is Diamond. Serve as the associate pastor of vision development and execution at Mount Zion. That's a long title, but we'll talk about how we got there. Grew up in Southeast DC. That's so funny, the South Side of DC, and ended up going to Elizabeth Seton High School. I grew up with a single mother of 4. I'm the oldest. Okay. Went to Elizabeth Seton High School, went to all-girl middle school, ended up going to Hampton, went to Hampton, then went to Princeton Theological Seminary. And then from there, at Princeton, I interned at Mount Zion. Interned there, was supposed to do once, ended up interning twice. Then on actually my graduation day, many people don't know this, but on my graduation day, Bishop Walker, who's our senior pastor at Mount Zion, he extended my offer letter, like personally. Wow. And he just texted me like, you want your offer letter now or later? And the day of my graduation, not only was he on my, because I graduated virtually in the pandemic, but he was on the live saying congratulations. And then he texted me like, what you want to do? I didn't know what I was going there to do, truthfully, because I could not discern. Like in seminary, they always tell you to discern. And most of the times, like, you know, you have these created paths, right? You're either going to be a youth pastor for a little while, or you're going to be a young adult pastor. Just because you're young, they put you in that category. Mm-hmm. Or you want to be an executive pastor, or you just know you're going to be a senior pastor. And I didn't quite like have a path. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so Bishop extended the invitation for me to be over vision development and execution at the Mount. And I didn't know what that meant at the time. I didn't know the magnitude of it, but it simply meant that he wanted me to help execute his vision for the entire church and the staff. And yeah, so that's what that is. I come from a small church. Well, not small, but I come from just a family church, right? Like a community church in Temple Hills, Maryland. I've only had one other pastor other than Bishop Walker, and that's Bishop Lanier C. Twyman, Senior, and grew up in St. Stephen. My grandma was the outreach director, and I did everything at church. I was just a church girl. Accepted my calling to preach at 15. I remember telling Bishop Twyman that I felt called to preach. I was scared out of my mind because I didn't know what it meant. I only knew what I've seen. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to be in the pulpit. Like, that's scary because I don't like that. Mm-hmm. Accepted my call to preach. And I remember him telling me, like, we're not going to wait until you're 20. We're not going to wait until you're 30. Like, we're going to affirm your call now. Ended up doing some ministerial training. I was the youngest person in that ministerial training. Ended up getting licensed when I went to Hampton University. And then from there, it's pretty much been history. So that's a little bit about my story. Yeah. A lot of little nuances along the way. But yeah.
So what is it like being called at that age? I mean, of course, you're not the only one that has stories like that. But what is it like coming up in church and then realizing a call at such an early age? How does it change your high school life? How does it cultivate your childhood in a different way?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, and you're the OG of this because people don't know that this guy was preaching on the Baltimore scene. Like, he was the premier young preacher. So let's be very clear.
No.
But since you asked me, I'll answer. But it made life awkward, like off the bat, because everyone kind of like, even at church, right? They see you as like this star child because you've made, it's so unfortunate in church, right? Just caveat that no one wants, I mean, like now it's like, you don't want to raise up Sunday school teachers, deacons, deaconess. It's like when you accept your call to preach, like that's a big thing. So it just separated me in church, like the golden child. It also made high school awkward because, well, really middle school and high school, because people would call me like Pastor Gantt. Like people would flat out be like,
oh, they knew it early.
Right. They just, I'm like, y'all stop. Or they would just call me by my last name. It was crazy. But yeah, it just, like in high school, I never felt like I fit in. I was very likable because I was still, like kind of a cool kid, but people had like this awkward respect for me, like early on, that I didn't know why, but I also didn't know the magnitude of the call and how people just kind of have this automatic reverence, right, for clergy and people, especially, at that age. So it really separated me. I feel like, yeah, it separated me and it made life a little awkward.
So being removed from it now and looking back at it, were there any moments that you wish changed as you were coming up in that stage with how church people dealt with you, with how people in your age demographic dealt with you, some of the things that may have had an impact, a negative impact on you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say school had a negative impact because a lot of that was more so like people just having a healthy respect, because kids don't care, right? They don't care about the dramatics of like preaching and all of the religiosity that we add on stuff. But I will say church was difficult, and it wasn't bad. It was just more so people trying to put me into a box that I just didn't felt like I fit into. I got quite tired of it after a while. And I think that's why I'm so expressive in how I am now, and just like not wanting to be in a box, because I felt like as soon as I accepted my call, you have to do this, you have to do that, you need to look like this, you need to dress like this, I got so tired of it. So now I'm just like, you're not going to tell, like, you're not about to tell me what I'm going to do, how I'm going to dress, like, unless I'm being respectful to someone's house, I'm coming to preach or something like that. But other than that, I'm not doing it. But yeah, that was the negative portion. Cause I'm like, why is it that when we accept our call that, people feel like they are the ones that called us, right? Like, yeah, like they start putting all these parameters that God never gave us, when we accepted our call. And it almost ages you, right? Like you feel like you have to be so much older than you really are.
16 going on 60.
Right. Like, why are we acting like this? And it also, what people don't understand, when they put those preconceived notions on you, it also kind of twists you being able to serve your generation, because they want to see people who are like them or still have some type of, aspects that are relatable, rather than you trying to act like, the senior pastor that's twice your age or 3 times your age. Yeah.
Yeah. So you leave that stage of being in high school and ministry. You go to Hampton. What's the adjustment like being in ministry and at Hampton?
That was crazy. I think college is the only place, not that I wish I could do a do-over, but I wish I knew where I would be today then. Sometimes. When I got to Hampton, I wasn't licensed to preach yet, but I was very involved in campus ministry. So we have the Hampton University Memorial Church, which many preachers are aware of. You go to the ministers' conference, things like that. And so I was like a chapel assistant, and I worked in campus ministry, which people don't know, but Hampton's campus ministry is a hidden gem, because throughout generations, I've watched it grow. And it was a moment in time when we were on Hampton's campus. We had at least, I think, 6 to 7 young preachers that were on campus, and a plethora of preachers' kids who had well-known parent pastors or bishops.
Mhm.
So it was a moment in time, right? Like we were having Bible study, standing room only. We would have revival, which we still have to this day, right? And the people wanted it. There was like revival on campus. Because I worked in campus ministry, yet again, there was more of a separation, right? Because people still had this respect. And ironically, although I was a part of campus life outside of that, I was a student leader. I was involved in like the political science club. Like I was purposefully intentional about not putting myself in just a church box. But because I was involved in campus ministry and it was so highly revered,
Mhm.
it was like nothing that was inaccessible to me on campus because they wanted like the influence of a preacher in those spaces. So that was interesting. But I will say Hampton really helped me form like my preaching ministry, my ministerial identity, being around other young preachers who dealt with like the same thing, coming back from home, acting 80, but now you're on a campus with a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And it's like, oh, I really don't have to act like this.
Mhm.
So it helped form my ministry, but it helped me to have a level of normalcy. Like it
Yeah.
balanced me out. That's why I always say like to young preachers coming up, if you can, get out of your hometown, go somewhere to college, like get out. Or either if you go to school in your hometown, do other things, expose yourself, because it will help to balance you out so that you're, I don't want to say it makes your ministry more palatable, but it makes your personality more palatable.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're treading deep water now. And I always tell people if we go in a direction, we can always cut.
Mhm.
So you're at Hampton, you're in chapel assistance, you're in ministry. Do you go to the parties?
Yeah, so I never went to house parties. Let me be very clear, because I'm not a party person. Let me
Okay.
just like, but because I was in SLP, which was our student leadership program, we had to go to what we call Holland Hall.
Okay.
And Holland was, I think it was a monthly party. It was a monthly or weekly, I can't remember. But it was like the place to be. It was jumping. It was hot. It was all kind of, how real can I be?
Oh, it's
Oh,
real as
it
you
was
wanna be.
twerking. It was drinking. It was it was the real turn up.
Okay.
So I had to go just because we were literally forced to go, because we had to start the party. Like somebody had to be the first people there.
Oh, y'all were the party
Already-
starters.
Yes,
Okay.
like SLP was like elite. Like so we showed up early so that the party could be jumping. And then people would actually want to come, because no one wants to come to a party where there's no one there.
Right.
So I had to go to those, but I never stayed long just because I don't like parties. Like I'm more of a, hey, let's chill, let's go to a lounge type vibe.
Okay.
So yeah. But it's so funny because every time I would go to parties though, oh, pastor, preacher, you wanna drink? You know, they always try to make the pastor turn up, then want to take a picture. Next thing you know, you exposed.
All on social media.
All on social media, looking crazy. So,
Either that or they're trying to see how human you really are,
facts.
because they don't know how to take you if you're not human, and they also don't know how to take you when you are human.
No, that's good. That's real.
Yeah. People think they want to know your humanity until they get exposed to it, and then they realize they can't really handle it.
Yeah. You just helped me.
Hey, that's one lesson I've learned in ministry.
That's a yeah.
And so I've learned how to protect people from my humanity because they think that they can handle it when really they can't.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't even have to be bad. Just like what you're saying, like it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're an alcoholic, you're a drug addict, you know, you're into some illicit sex material, you know, or ideals. It could be regular basic stuff. But when people realize that the pedestal that they put you on in their head does not exist the way they saw it in their mind, then they have a problem with you being a person.
Facts.
And so you're at the party, you're with the leadership group, you're not really into it, so that's not your thing. So how do you navigate the trajectories from there of being in school and being relevant in the space, but also not involved in their culture?
Yeah. So I would do stuff like, especially student leadership program, I would sign up for like events that would make me have to be in the atrium of our like main student center. So I would get to know people there, and I would gel with people just because I was an inquisitive person. Like I wanted to know about you, and then people wanted to know about me, and then they were just like, "Oh, you're regular." I'm like, "Yeah, you're regular." Like we're both.
Yeah.
So I met a lot of people that way, like just sitting in the student center, talking to people, or like going to different places or being in different spaces that required like thinking, talking. And then when they heard me like, "Oh, you're not judgmental, you're not," I'm like, "No, I'm not."
Mm-hmm.
Or I would show up into spaces that were sometimes uncomfortable for me, but I never like judge. Like I know, like I'm not damning people to hell.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made me like relatable. And like they felt the human side of me in that space. So that was helpful.
So you go from Hampton to Princeton. HBCU, you are entrenched in Black excellence. At Hampton, you're in one of the most prestigious Black institutions, even though I feel like all of our Black institutions are prestigious.
For sure. Absolutely.
Because any university that can pull themselves up from a basement,
yes,
or from nothing,
yes,
to be the institution that can graduate us with Black excellence, all of them have started out with humble beginnings, but have done a great job. You leave from Hampton, you go to a PWI. How does the experience change for you?
Let me tell you something. When I stepped foot on Princeton's campus, I realized that all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Wow.
That was the first lesson I learned, because I'm on this tip like, oh, we all here, let's stick together, and that just wasn't the case. And it wasn't that they were like, that people were bad or weren't. They came from different cultures, or they were used to the PWI culture, where it wasn't the whole, let's stick together, let's hang out, but then I will say, shout out to, the squad at Princeton, because I met some really great people, and we stuck together and we talk to this day. But Princeton was different for me. I liked it only because when I left Hampton, I felt like, and this is going to sound arrogant, but it's not. You people will understand where I'm coming from. I felt like when I was at Princeton, by the time I was leaving, the spotlight had gotten a little bit too heavy. So when I went to Princeton, it like kind of died down in a sense of, okay, I'm in a new space. Don't nobody care about, Preacher Diamond, when
you left Hampton.
When I left Hampton, I felt like, while in my last, year there, because that's when I was probably preaching the most, it was just like, okay, this is getting a little heavy for me. So when I went to Princeton, I felt like I was just one in the number. I felt like I was just another student. We didn't dress up for class. They wasn't styling and profiling. It was just, you were normal. Princeton helped me to eat the meat and spit out the bones. I'll never forget, I was in a class where my professor told me, "Welcome to Princeton, where your best is not enough," since 1812. And from then I knew.
Yikes.
No, facts. It's that kind of institution though. They gotta haze you, do all that crazy stuff, academic hazing. But it helped me to eat the meat, spit out the bones. But it was a culture shock. Like it was a culture shock, because I was used to being down, and they wasn't.
They wasn't down.
They wasn't down.
They wasn't even trying to be down.
No, they was not trying to be down, which I should have known. But but I made it through. Yeah.
So it was at Princeton that you were introduced to Bishop Walker?
So ironically, I guess I should tell this story. Let me tell the story. So I met Dr. Stephanie before I met Bishop Walker. I was at a Full Gospel conference, and Dr. Steph and my home church first lady were close, or are close, and was doing some stuff with her, and basically just said I was thinking about going to Princeton. She was like, "Oh, you should like meet my husband." And I was like, I didn't know, like it's so crazy how much I just didn't know before I went to Mount Zion, but I didn't know who her husband was.
Okay. Was he the presiding? He wasn't the presiding bishop
He
at the time?
was.
Okay.
Yeah, he was. He was the presiding bishop, but I was young, right? I was still coming out of Hampton I wasn't engulfed in like full gospel life, I guess. So ended up just seeing Bishop. I had never talked to him still, but ended up actually just talking to someone on his staff because I wanted to go to Vanderbilt and was just talking to them about their experience at Vandy. And then when I decided that I was going to go to Princeton or wanted to apply, I had reached out to Bishop on Instagram and basically wrote something asking him to write me a letter of recommendation. He didn't know me. I only knew someone on his staff. And he ended up actually writing the letter of recommendation. And I was so nervous, y'all, to send this message to the point where I had drafted it up and like closed my eyes and like hit send. I was like, this man don't know me. This is weird. Ended up writing me a letter of recommendation because he's a Princeton grad. And from there, I think the next year, I met him in person and he knew who I was, which I was still shocked because I'm like, I know you wrote me a letter of recommendation, but you know, you're the presiding bishop, you're doing all these great things. You don't know me. So he randomly saw me in passing and he was like, come here, I want to do a video with you about me writing you a letter of recommendation. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the video, he was like, yeah, just finish Princeton and I'm going to hire you. And I was like, hire me? Now, I told y'all, I don't come from like a mega church or anything like that, just a community church that does the Lord's work.
But it ain't small.
No, it's not small at all. No. St. Stephen Baptist Church is not a small church by any means. No. But just not a mega huge ministry. So I was like, hire? What does that mean to hire someone at a church? And then So I was like, what does that mean? And when he said it, I didn't know he was serious. So I'm like, oh, he's just saying this. But I remember like there was just this agency that came over me that was just like, hey, Bishop, like, can I do my internship at your church? Because I had read that Princeton made us do or would make us do 2 internships. So I was like, let me just ask, like in this mm-hmm. moment, like while he's here. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh, yeah. Just call, get in touch with my office. We'll make it happen. So I remember when it was about time, I reached out like, hey, Bishop, I reached out on Instagram. Hey, would you mind doing, can I still do my internship? And from there, he put me in contact with his people. And I flew to Nashville. And this is going to sound so embarrassing, but Mount Zion has heard this story. I flew to Nashville. I had nowhere to stay. I did not know that Mount Zion had 3 churches. I thought it was just one because again, that's what I knew. I didn't know the magnitude of the ministry. Like the person that I ended up staying with throughout my internship tenure, I slept on their couch and Bishop didn't know this. He thought I like had a place to stay. He didn't find this out until like I was getting ready to leave. Slept on their couch my whole internship. And then I met them the day that I landed through another Princeton grad that set me up like, stay here. So it was very much, I wouldn't recommend that to all you seminarians or whomever. Don't do what I did. But it was very much an aha God moment because I didn't know the magnitude of what I was walking into. I didn't know how big of a legend Bishop Walker was in the city, or in the nation. I was kind of ignorant, Drew.
You just knew you wanted an opportunity
to learn.
Learn and intern there. But you were still a young preacher.
Yeah. I was like, I just know like I'm supposed to learn from Bishop Walker. Like he wrote me a letter of recommendation. I know I'm supposed to like, this guy has shown me kindness. So let me just ask.
Yeah.
I had never been to Tennessee. I knew nothing about Nashville at all.
But crazy. People look at the opportunity like that. They sometimes covet the opportunity, but they really don't know sometimes the process.
For sure.
That they would think, oh, I'm going to work for Bishop Walker as an intern for the summer. I'm going to be laid out in some lavish location.
Yeah.
I'm going to have the greatest or biggest of this or that or the third. And then to think about your level of humility and not seeking after requiring or even demanding, those kind of treatments. Some people will miss moments and opportunities because their level of humility doesn't match the place that they're trying to get to.
Facts.
And so for you to sleep on someone's couch for the entire summer without making a fuss or stink about it and not pushing for Bishop Walker's people to give you better accommodations really shows your interest in the environment more than your desire for certain social media posts style, things.
No, that's real. And I think about it all the time because I talked about even in that moment, I didn't know Bishop. We were just doing this video, and just the agency to be like, not can I get a selfie with you? Not can I do a video with you? Like, I want to intern, at your church. And he would never know it because every day we met, I was on time. When, he was pouring, information or what did you learn today? I was, giving those things. Like I was there, I was present. And it really, to me, it still wasn't even bad. Now I'm a little bit too old to sleep on somebody's couch, but then it was like, that wasn't even a problem for me because I was learning so much in real time. It was like God was just expediting my bandwidth in that moment. So yeah, it wasn't something that I wanted to just be like, hey, I need this, I need that. It was more so, no, teach me the knowledge that's going to take me further.
So fast forward, you get to Mount Zion. What's the transition like between being an intern and working on staff?
Ooh, geez, that was quite the transition. I thank God that I interned at Mount Zion because it helped me with the people because they were familiar, and Bishop was gracious enough, which I'd never expected to preach at Mount Zion, but he gave me just a 10-minute slot to preach before I left. And that people remembered me because of that, the congregation. But the staff and things like that, there was an adjustment, rightfully so, of them seeing me as an intern versus seeing me as the person that's over vision development and execution. I will be quite honest, coming out of seminary, I didn't know the magnitude of that role. I just knew Bishop gave it to me and I wanted to help him make things happen. It was never about working alongside our staff. It was never about any of that, but it required that. And it was an adjustment for them to get to know me on a greater level and for them to see me not as the intern that's just around, but actually a member of the team making an impact and leading in that way. It was a fair adjustment though. So many people, if they were in my role, they would feel so, you guys should listen to me. You guys, you should. No. It's never that because I extended grace just as they were getting to know me on that level. I was getting to know them. So if someone comes into your house as a new parent or something of that nature, or a new sibling, or just someone you don't know, it takes a time of adjustment. I also recognize who I was working alongside, who I was working for. Bishop has been a very present pastor and is a very present pastor, has always been there, meetings, leading, giving clear vision. So for him to extend that for me to come in his stead in some instances, that was new for them and it was new for me. So just as they were looking at me like a deer in headlights, sometimes I was looking at them like, I don't know what I'm doing. Now I've grown since then, but yeah, it was a major adjustment for them to see me in that light. I think about it now, coming up on 3 years, there were moments where Bishop had to put me out there to sink or swim. Like, let me see if you're going to actually, do this or you're not. And I had to figure it out.
So how has Bishop's relationship with you as a pastor grown, changed, developed, even morphed from interning till now. I don't know if your experience is similar to mine. And I probably can't admit it until this day. I think I put a lot of pressure on my pastor when I was growing up because I didn't have a father in my household.
Yeah.
And so he really became like a father to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if there were times when he even knew that I was seeing him like that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember, and this is probably the first time I've ever told this story.
Oh, wow.
I remember that I was probably just getting started in ministry, really accepting my call to preach. So I had to have been about 14 years old or so. And my pastor at the time was nurturing and really kind of like fathering his kids. And I said to him one day, you know, hopefully with everything you have going on with your kids, it's not too much on you to have me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really my way of reaching out to try to establish the fact that I was looking for that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and so whenever I got dropped into the basket with all the rest of the preachers who were older than me, adults in their own right, some close in age to him, some older than him, I felt differently about it because I was looking for a different type of relationship. They wanted to be pastored and I really wanted a father.
Mm-hmm.
So how has that relationship with Bishop grown, morphed, developed, changed from internship till now?
Yeah, I told Bishop at a very early on in our mentor-mentee relationship that, you know, allow me to be a liability until I become an asset.
Mm.
And not a liability in a sense of I'm going to be erroneous in my behavior or I'm going to, you know, be a nuisance to you as a leader. But there were things that I needed from him as a mentor until I could establish my own. And the only reason I say that is because there were things I just genuinely didn't know about leadership. But then secondarily, I did not know how to execute leadership on the level of a Mount Zion. To your question about the fathering, it was very organic how Bishop became a spiritual father to me. And we use that word so crazy now in the church. It gets, you know, but a true spiritual father in the sense of, I'm not only going to teach you about ministerial ethics and things of that nature. What are your finances looking like?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've come here as an intern, you're preaching on the road a little bit. You're not making a whole bunch of money. I also was marketing director at my former church. So was making, you know, a little money there, but you're making this money. You're not going to be around me. You're going to be broke. So that was like establishing that, you know, emotional intelligence about having the right people around you, learning from the right people, giving me books to read, things of that nature. So organically, I began to see him as a spiritual father. I also did not grow up with my father in the household. My father was present here and there. This is probably one of the first times I'm telling this as well. Mm-hmm. But I never wanted to put the pressure on my pastor, Bishop Twyman, or Bishop Walker to be my natural father, right? Because they have their own kids, Bishop Walker, you know, like that. I never wanted that, but I did want to put myself in position to be poured into so that, like you said, in the midst of all that you have going on, I'm not a spoiled brat in the sense that stop this, pour into me. But in the meantime, if you're at Starbucks, hey, can I ask you a few questions? Or if you're, you know, at Barnes and Nobles, do you have 20 minutes for me just to, you know, or, hey, Bishop, can I just have 5 minutes of your time so that I could get some of those things? And naturally, because anybody that's around you that sees a deficiency in your life, but also sees purpose on your life, they're going to do their best, short of not handling their responsibilities or putting not handling their responsibilities in efforts to pour into you. Like they're going to naturally want to make sure you're good on that end. And I think that's something that, Bishop did. Now, transferring from intern to on staff, there was a organic shift, right? Because now you're not an intern, you're getting paid to do a job.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I had to adjust to. But it was organic because I wanted to do well. I knew I had a work ethic. Like, no one's going to outwork me. Let me be very clear. Like, that's, so I had a work ethic, but I had to move into that asset versus liability. So now, hey, I want to move into a space where you don't have to ask me twice. I want to take everything that I learned about you and your leadership style, how you flow as an intern, and make sure that I'm on the front end of what you're asking me to do as an employee. So I kind of had a little bit of a sneak peek to that helped me with my job. But I mean, and he held me accountable to being an employee. Like, you have to do your job. And that's never a problem for me because I come like, that's fine. Like, I don't expect to get paid to do nothing. So yeah, I think that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. So talk about the father piece.
Yeah.
The absence of your father and how, that has kind of played out in your life. I'm empathetic, sensitive to that because I come from the same kind of story or environment. So what's that experience been like for you?
Yeah, I'll be honest. This is the first time I've ever talked about this on a public platform. And I'm going to do my best to tell the story. I'm going to be very truthful, but without telling my father's story without permission, I guess, or what have you. So again, grew up with a single mother, never wanted for anything. My mom was not rich by any means, but she was a hardworking mother. I also had the support of my father's mother, my grandmother, as well as my mother's mother and her father, my grandfather. So I had community, but my dad went to jail when I was 1. And from there, sporadically, he was in my life. I will say that from his location, he did what he could to make sure I was good, to the best of his ability. So that's that. It was very difficult when I was growing up because I went to, certain kind of schools, and for the most part, everyone had their mother and their father. And I remember being young, just asking God, like, why don't I have a normal household? Like, why can't I have a mom, a dad? Like, I just want a dad. You have the daddy-daughter dances and things that come up, and that's absent. And it really does psychologically play a role in how you view life, how you feel as it pertains to absence and being wanted. So my dad went to jail when I was 1, ended up going into middle school. He was out for a period of time. High school, same thing happened. And ironically, Hampton, same thing happened. These little pockets where he was out and then, back in or what have you. And it really played a toll because I know that my dad loves me, but I always wondered just why wasn't he there for me? Or was the love not enough to be present, to do what it takes to just be there? And I know that comes with a myriad of feelings on his end, right? So I don't want to downplay that. But it was very difficult for me. I think I kind of erased it after high school, and I went to Hampton, went to Princeton, and for a minute it was just fine. It was just what have you. I'm living. It did not hit me his absence, and no one knows this story except the associate pastors of the Mount Zion Church and Bishop Walker. Until my first Father's Day at Mount Zion. I don't know what it was, but I remember going into the 8:15 service, and Bishop knew something was off. You know, I had on my little glasses. They were a little bit darker than this, but enough to get away with wearing them in service. Because I just felt off that day. I don't know what it was. It just came out of nowhere. Made it to the Antioch location. And I don't think I was up to speak that day, but I remember leaving the pulpit because I just felt a weight of heaviness just sit on me. And I went to the back to the green room, and I had a whole breakdown, like a whole sitting on the floor, couldn't get myself together breakdown. And it was like the tears just kept coming. And I unfortunately, as any leader or any person that's strong, that has their stuff together, you know, you feel weak in that moment because it's like, why is this getting, like, I don't want to feel like get myself together so I can go to the next service, do what I got to do reflections, be there, be present, because I'm always thinking about, this is my job. You know, this is not the place for that. This is your place where you're supposed to be strong. Why are you feeling that way? But that Father's Day in particular hit me so heavily to the point where I was made to go home. Like I could not go to the next service. And I remember Bishop coming from the pulpit into the room, like knocking on the door, and I just could not get myself together. There were a myriad of things that I think led to that moment. If I have time to share,
Sure.
I don't want to be too lengthy.
No, go ahead.
But I think it was the fact that I moved to Nashville at 24. 25. I just turned 25. I became a homeowner. I became an AKA. I became associate pastor of vision development and execution at the Mount Zion. I was learning to be an adult, like real adult. There was so much happening, so many great accomplishments happening in my life, but there was still an absence of some sort. And at the same time, I was being exposed to what family really looked like. I was in a church that talked about marriage a lot. I was in a church that talked about fatherhood, motherhood. I was in a church that talked about loving your family and provide, you know, the holistic ministry, you know, family, fitness, finance. And then ultimately I was down south. So everything, you know, they were getting married at like 18. So all of that was like weighing on me to the point where this day I just felt the absence that I never felt before. Probably haven't felt that way since I was a little girl, and it just raised itself up. And so I think me having that breakdown, and there's a myriad of things that have happened after that I could get into, but it's just not even worth it. But crying that cry, I can now like sit here and talk about it. I don't think I could talk about it before then. It was like God was like, I'm going to get this out of you. And of course, therapy helps. Like, let's be real. But that moment really exposed that there was a pain, there was a hurt. And I just felt like I did all of this. I'm this, I'm that. And still like, you're not there still, you know? So I'll leave that there, but that's the fathering piece.
I mean, I totally understand it. And not even like a story to overshadow your story. I think that there are subtle ways, and I don't know if this is the reality for you. I think there are subtle ways that come out periodically with me to show me how numb I am to the fathering piece. Now, I think I told this story at New Hope. I found out for a while, I still had the thought in my mind that my father would resurface and I would have that relationship. I've never had a relationship with my father in all my life. I go on Google one day to Google him, only to discover he was dead. Wow. And had been dead for some years.
Wow.
So at that point, the door was like abruptly shut in my face.
Yeah.
That is done. Like there's no correcting, the situation or anything like that. There are subtle ways I think that show up, and I'll tell you one of them, and you'll understand this, I think, at least.
Yeah.
When Bishop Walter Thomas invited us to go to 10 by 10 this past week, he called like back in March, and he invited and he said, here are the dates, Drew, it's the 17th through the 19th. So I immediately looked at the calendar to realize that we were going the day after Father's Day.
Wow.
Right. So here's how it kind of comes out. So I quickly said, oh, I'll fly in on Sunday. I don't have nothing going on for Father's Day. It means nothing to me.
Same.
And so
Same.
Like outside of being at church to honor the fathers in my church because of their service and impact, I never want to cut them short because the day really means nothing to me.
Yeah.
I got on the plane and was looking forward to the conference for the week. And then I see, your post that you're going to be there. And I'm like.
And where was my post? It was like immediately after service.
Yeah.
Like I left service, went to the airport.
Yep. And so in those kind of situations, I had nothing holding me. And I think I even made that joke to Bishop Thomas while we were there. He said, when did you all get in? And I said, I got in yesterday because I don't have a father. There wasn't nothing holding me in town,
Yeah.
I think that there are moments where even though I feel like I'm further along in the journey than a lot of people are, and I think I've gotten there a lot quicker than a lot of people, there are still moments where I can tell there's a raw spot
to
it. Now I will say the thing, sadly, this is sad though. I don't condone this. I think the thing that makes it a little bit easier though than if it was a mother situation is that Father's Day is not as widely celebrated as Mother's Day. But if Father's Day got the kind of attention that Mother's Day gets, I probably would be sitting around every week, similar to what you described, dreading going to church, dreading being around. It's like, I just don't have that same publicity around it. But it's a rough situation.
Yeah.
How do you think that situation has developed you for where you are right now?
I think it has kept me humble in a sense that, and this is gonna sound bad too. I guess we just sounded bad today, but it's helping.
We
live
in our truth,
right?
Though.
We live in our truth. It helps me in a sense of, because preachers can't have this big head because the church loves me. I'm preaching, people applaud. If they're married, I go home and there are, a myriad of moments, but there's some type of affection there. You're getting all of this applause from every aspect. And sometimes it's to mask other things. But for me, it's kept me humble because while everybody else is like, you're this, you're that, you're that, there's always like this little piece in my head that's like, you still have not attained because there's this one voice of affirmation that's missing. So that sadly like keeps me humble. I don't know if that's good or bad. I've talked it out with my therapist, but yeah, but it's also helped me to be empathetic to others and how they feel. It's also helped me not to get to a place where God can't break me down, even in the place that I think I'm supposed to be strong. And I learned that day, that was my first Father's Day at Mount Zion. And I've had 2 since then, which have gone fine. And it also helps me to appreciate the presence of fathers that are there. Like sometimes, and people don't know this, I'm a people watcher. I stand in the atrium of our locations and talk to people, but it makes me appreciate seeing single dads or even just, married dads that are present. Like it does make me hopeful that one day I'll be able to give that experience to my child. So yeah, it's a myriad of feelings, but primarily what I mentioned before, there's always a missing voice there that keeps me humble to say, well, I'm glad y'all think I'm great, but yeah. So,
all right, last question.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go all the way into dating and singleness and all of that, because I told you we weren't going into that.
Can I be like Cat Williams? I just need one Cat Williams moment. So please
Okay.
ask me whatever.
Okay.
No, I'm just that was a joke, y'all.
Well, that is funny. Cat Williams is my favorite comedian.
I mean, that was an iconic daggone interview with him and Shannon Sharp.
Yeah.
I thought about it when I sat behind this mic. I was like, dang, I got my moment. I'm just
my favorite Shannon Sharp, I shouldn't even say this, was Monique, though.
Oh, yeah.
That was my favorite one.
That was hilarious. I'm not going to tell y'all what she said when she came to Nashville on tour. God. With that. That was...
So what has dating or even relationships search and or investment been like as a woman or even as a girl not having that father figure present?
Yeah. So, all right, I don't know where to start, but I think one of the things, because I became so numb in a sense of, I think I numbed myself through achievement. And you have like 500 degrees. So I don't know if we share that similarity, but
you numbed yourself through achievement. That was good.
Yeah, I numbed myself through achievement. And because of that, I was always looking for not looking, but the next step was always there. Because I didn't know how much I was achieving or the magnitude of it, I didn't see how guys saw me, not even, I don't want to say as a threat, but just like, I'm not good enough or I'm not that. And it flips psychologically because now I have moments where I'm like, maybe I'm not good enough, or they like that. What's wrong with me? And I will say it's been difficult. I've been hypersensitive though, not to father my dating relationships. So I'm not looking for someone to come in my life and be a father, but I do know that whomever comes in my life, I want them to just be a strong person. You know, it's weird because I'm 28. I guess since high school, you know, talking to guys or whatever. But I look at like the dating scene now and I could see how the absence of a father would make someone feel like, oh, she may be looking for it. You know, because everybody want their hair done. They want their nails. They want this. They want car payments. I'm like, hey, my mortgage is good. My car payments are fine. Like, I don't need any of that. I more so want relationship. So I think I've just been kind of hypersensitive not to be the stereotypical absentee father dater, if you will. I will say that because I numbed myself through achievement, that sometimes I'm like, not should I slow my roll, but I know for a fact the associate pastor title or pastor or minister probably has shifted what dating looks like for me versus the father piece.
Okay.
So
last question.
Yeah.
I said that before. I'm like a Baptist preacher now.
Yeah,
with 6 closes. You brought up a different piece though that I sometimes hear women talk about. What is it like dating as an accomplished woman? Do you find that a lot of men are intimidated by your success and they don't know how to take you with success? I was talking to a preacher friend who, since we're talking about dating, I probably should not say their name, just about how women are perceived in dating, given a level of success and what they feel like guys want from them or how they feel like guys see them. And then you add the preacher part onto it. How does it get weird?
Oh, it gets very weird. So I'm glad you asked the question, dating as a successful woman and not necessarily dating as a successful preacher. Because what I found that now that I've been exposed to more successful women that are not preachers, they low key or high key deal with the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I think it's the success all around. And the unfortunate part is everyone feels like, oh, you're supposed to, or someone who's not as successful would probably want you, or someone that is as successful would probably want to date you. But really, it's just, I don't know if it's a man thing all around, but I've met some great successful guys and they still be like kind of approaching it as if, oh, like you got a lot going on, you got this. And I think the more I'm around men, and thank God, I've been around some great, just solid men, like shout out to the brothers, right? The more I'm around them, I think men are wired to be provider. And I don't say that in a sense of just dishing out money, but just wired to be what you don't have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a lot of that sometimes could be financial or just leads to finance, right? Or leads to emotional. I don't know. Yeah. So I think they're wired that way so that when they see there's maybe not the gaps that they perceive need to be filled, then they're like, I don't really know what I can do for her.
Mm-hmm.
On the flip side of that, I think there's also this preconceived notion that just because she's executive or what have you in the boardroom or in meetings, that she's going to be executive at home. And let me free the brothers, okay? Let me free y'all.
Free them.
If you come into our lives making it easier, we don't want to be that at home. I don't want to be bossing everything around. I want to lead. I ain't gonna say blindly be led, but I want to be led because I'm always leading.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yo, you create the right situation for me, mentally, spiritually, right? Again, not putting the finance in there, but you got to have some type of stability. And, let me say this. I used to say, no, what they make doesn't matter, and I get it. But you got to have something, because if I got to step away from my job to be pregnant and do all that stuff, somebody got to hold the fort down. And it would be the same reciprocated, you not having a child. But, if something were to happen, we got to hold each other down. So, yeah, you create the right environment. Like, hey, you the head of the household, so that's that. And I know everybody's not the same. I'm a little bit different, but yeah, that whole piece can be very interesting. I think one more thing, people don't really take the time to get to know you, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's just already this wall up, right? Your title creates this wall, your job creates this wall. And it's like, I'm so much more than that. Like before I came here last night, I was sitting at a spot literally drawing. I like to draw. I like to chill. I like to listen to music. People would never think that because they always see me on. But I think we got to get to the place, if we're going to be successful in dating, successful in getting to know a successful woman, know them when they're off, because that's truly who they are. Like that's truly... I can't go into a meeting and sit and doodle and ask crazy questions because that's not what my job requires of me. But who I am, I just want to chill. Yeah, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to get up. I'm going to work out. I'm going to be on some type of schedule. But when it's time off, it's time off. So.
All right, you just gave him the playbook.
I gave y'all step by step. It's no excuses. I put you on.
And you gave him the you playbook. So if any of the guys on here trying to holler,
I'm tired of being single, so come correct. But it's about time. It's time.
And she already let you know that she is in the DMs. She uses her Instagram, is what she said.
I am on Instagram, Diamond J Gantt.
All right, last thing. I do this with everybody, but I'm gonna put some parameters around yours because I think that this is something that would be probably more helpful. Look in your camera and give some words of wisdom, advice, help to a young girl who is where you are or where you were with your dad. How can they navigate that experience and become their best self given the circumstances?
Whew, I'm glad you asked me that at this stage. I would definitely say know your worth. It's not you. You have to contend or go through life enough to know how much life to make them feel the way that they feel. I would say do a deep dive into what it could be on their end that is, or where they could be on their end in efforts not to be there for you. It is instinctively, or should be instinctively in every man's character to be there for their daughter. So think about all that they may be going through that has created so much distance that they're not there for you. And then recognize that it's not you. Stop putting the pressure on you. Stop numbing yourself through other things, whether it's achievement or whatever it is, and know that you're worth it. Live your life, and that God will make up for it in other ways. God will make up for it in so many ways. Eyes have not seen. I don't want to get too preachy.
No,
Ears have not heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man or woman what God has for your life. Take that, bottle that hurt, that pain, go to therapy, do what you got to do to get free, but don't let it hold you hostage.
Thank you. Plug your clothing line, your social medias before we close.
Well, I love this podcast. Thank you for doing that. So I ain't have to do it myself. No, I'm just like, no. So I do have a clothing line. I have Contending for the Faith. I also have Guilty of Being Holy. All of that is on my website, diamondjgantt.com. If I was in Drew's church, he got all the technology. I'll say, put it on the screen.
We're going to put it on the screen.
Oh, you're going to put it on the screen. Okay, so it's going to come up on the screen. So yeah, all of that's there. I also have a prayer album that's on all platforms. It's called Contending for the Faith. You just put my name or put Contending for the Faith, you'll see it. It's on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, everywhere. So please support and tag me on Instagram at diamondjgantt with your merch, whether the prayer album blesses you. I want to know. Let me know. And I want to say thank you, Drew, for having me on. Hopefully I was a cool guest. For sure.
And Diamond is preaching for us tomorrow, so I'm sure that we're going to be blessed times 10. Thank you so much.
And they're going to be screaming, give me Pastor Drew.
Lies. See y'all later.
See ya.
Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation with spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers. The Real with Ross and ministry leaders, candid conversation for spiritual teachers.
The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now. Do-do-do-do-do. The Real with Ross now.
Real and raw conversation.